Hello and welcome to the Womb Centered Healing Podcast. I'm Sama Morningstar and I have Susy with me here today. Susy has volunteered to allow me to record her womb wellness assessment to be able to publish this on the podcast and use it in my training programs as an educational experience. I've been doing these assessments for quite some time, and I'm very passionate about spreading the information about how to read and listen to the information, the guidelines, the guidance that our womb is giving us through our menstrual cycle and our menstrual symptoms. So this womb wellness assessment is from my training with Steamy Chick at steamychick.com, where she has integrated principles from Chinese medicine of reading the menstrual cycle for energetic and physical imbalances in the whole overall health of a person. And so we're going to look at this intake form for vaginal steaming together on this podcast. So if you're listening to the audio, you might want to look at the video if you want to see the form. Otherwise, you can just listen to what we're talking about. So here I'm going to share the screen. And let's see, we're putting in, hold on one second. Okay, so we're going to look at this form. The first part we're going to look at is your cycle length. Okay, so we're going to talk about Susy's cycle length and things I've learned about cycle length. If you can make these calculations for yourself, listeners, on your own, you're welcome to do so, or you can sign up for a womb wellness assessment with me if you want to walk through it together. So the cycle length, the length of your cycle from the first day that you start bleeding to the day before the next time you bleed. So that's what we're talking about, is the length of your whole menstrual cycle. Okay, so we're gonna figure that out right now. What was the first day of your last period?
The first day of the last period, it was it was 31st of December.
Okay.
It started, yeah.
You had a New Year's bleed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's happening for last, couple of months. It happened that always when I travel, always when I'm flying with a plane, I have a menstruation.
Okay.
Which is really, it's really interesting.
So
and I was flying that day.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's very common that travel, and we can talk about that later with one of the other energetic things, is travel can bring on menstruation even sometimes quite early. And we'll talk. Yeah. But so do you have, now you're looking on your phone where you've kept track of your cycle. Do you have an app that tells you what day of your cycle you're on? Like from that?
Yes.
What day does it say you're on?
If I go there, wait. Now I have written that I have like 0 days left. So it means that I should have a period now. But actually my period finished like, let's say 3 days ago.
Yeah, so you must have had your period quite early.
Yeah.
And did you enter it into your app? Did it calculate when, based on that new information of having your period starting on the 31st, did it calculate what day you're on now, or is it not that kind of an app?
No, I don't think that it's that kind of app because it's not written.
Okay.
It's not written there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can count that, and what I'll just share with you is that there are apps that calculate that for you, and that's very useful information. So the one that I use,
here I have written like a cycle length, so I had it. It's that.
That gives you the cycle length, but does it give you the day that you're on today?
No.
Okay.
No.
So the app that I use is called OvuView, OVUVIEW.
Okay.
And every time I enter what days I bleed on, it puts on the calendar that's day number 1, and it counts
Okay.
how many days, and then it translates that into my cycle length every cycle that I'm tracking in that app. And that's very useful information for us to know about more and more confidently about our fertility as well as our overall health. And we'll discuss more and more how that cycle length, what that tells us about our overall health. So, but for you, for this time, we can just count that you're on day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you're on day 12 today.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now you said you did have a tracker on your app that's telling you your cycle length for the past few months?
Yes.
Okay. So how long was your cycle, the previous cycle before this last time that you bled? How many days?
It was 29 days.
29 days. And the one before that?
Also 29 days.
And the one before that?
28 days.
And the one before that, did you have?
And it's just, it's all I have, actually.
Okay,
it's all the things when I start to count, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like then that your period did not come particularly early.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I don't know what that app was telling you or what your calendar was telling you. Maybe it's gotten offset for, but 29 days is the normal amount of days. It's right within, the window of what's considered a healthy menstrual cycle length is 28 to 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you've had 29 days these last couple of months, then that's not early, even if you traveled.
Right. Yeah, it's like, it's more that usually I had a period in the new moon, it started for a long time. It was in a full moon time. After it changed into new moon time, that really with the new moon it was really like exactly like a clocks, it was really like a precise timing. And now we get a little bit like after new moon, 3-4 days after new moon my period starts, but it's it's changing like more or less 1-2 days. But yeah, as I see now, which I wasn't aware about the cycle length, that it's kind of okay, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so when was the last time do you remember that you were cycling on the full moon?
Wow, it was like let's say, I would say even like 1.5 years ago.
Okay, so it took that long because probably what happens, because the moon cycle is the same as that 28 to 31 days cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're always within that window, you're pretty much going to stay on the same phase of the moon. Now, unless you're sometimes going a little bit shorter or sometimes going a little bit longer or consistently going a little bit shorter or longer, or sometimes what happens for some women is they have a big jump from one to the other at one point, where suddenly they're either really early or really late for their bleed, and now suddenly they're on the new or full moon when they were on the full or new moon before.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you might go on a gradual shift where every few months you have a shorter cycle perhaps, or a longer cycle. And so that's a really good thing to start tracking consistently. And I invite you again to explore the OvuView app, because I find it to be quite easy to to track all of that information, and it gives you a lot of ways that you can track. So what age were you when you had your first period?
I was 13.
13, okay. All right, so if you had no periods, we would be filling this out, but that's not the case for you. So we're going to look at information about your last period, the last time you bled. Now, if you had any of these symptoms during that last period or cycle, we'll say yes. If you didn't, we'll say no. If you sometimes have it, but not this last cycle, we'll say sometimes. If you've had it a long time ago, like more than 2 years ago, we'll say it's been a long time, okay? So these are all symptoms of uterine fatigue. So uterine fatigue is exactly what it sounds like. Our uterus gets tired. And there's a bunch of things that tires us out and makes our uterus feel tired. And we'll go over those because there's a whole list of things. Travel is one of them. What happens when the uterus gets tired is a muscle, and it's meant to, the way that we bleed is that there's arteries that come into the uterus and flush out the endometrial layer, which is the layer that gets built up, gets fed by those blood vessels to build up a healthy nest for a potential baby, right? During our menstrual cycle, it gets built up. And then when a fertilized egg is not implanted, it breaks down and gets flushed out by arterial blood that comes flowing in from an artery that flows. So the artery opens up, the muscle opens up the opening of the artery and allows that blood to flow in and flush out the endometrium for a number of days to clear that out. And then when that is done, it's supposed to, the muscle of the uterus is supposed to close off the opening to that artery and stop that blood flow from happening. Well, if the uterine muscle is fatigued, if it's tired from all kinds of reasons, it can't keep that artery shut. And so women who have uterine fatigue have these types of symptoms. So we can ask you if you've had any of these. Do you ever get pre-period fresh red blood spotting before menstrual cycle day 28?
No.
Do you have post-period fresh spotting, meaning the main bleeding has stopped, but you keep spotting for a day or more?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you have that this last time?
Yeah, I had it. Yeah, I had it this last time, but I also have to say that last time it was really special, and it wasn't, how to say, like something happened because I had a period, and I kind of like I finished with this period, or I had just this like little spotting, which I knew that the period is going to end. And after I took a bath in really like a special spot in Azores Islands in the ocean, and it was really healing, really beautiful, and I really felt my womb activated. And after I started to bleed again, I really felt that something big move out, and the ocean really this bath in the open ocean brought me kind of new period. It really started with the bleeding again, and a lot of releases. The blood was quite dark, not like a super dark, but something was really releasing after this bath in the ocean. And it was kind of, all this cycle was actually longer than I usually have.
Okay, how many days was it total?
I finished, let's say, on 9th of January, which is 9 days.
Right, so it was from the 31st to the 9th, and were there any days in there where you didn't bleed at all, or it was always a little bit spotting?
Yeah, it was always a little bit spotting.
Okay, so that's about 10 days.
Yeah, it was really like the first one kind of like a finish after I took a bath, and it brought a new, really like a new motion into my body and a lot of releasing.
Okay, and a lot of women feel that when they bleed more, that's a bigger release, and there may be because there's an emotional release happening, that it's deeply healing sometimes. And it's also good to know that bleeding that much is not healthy for our bodies. So I'm a big proponent for supporting our wombs to not have to do the releasing for us.
Yeah.
Okay. And because so finding other ways to release our emotions that don't require that much loss of blood.
Yeah. The thing is that for me it was absolutely surprise. I didn't definitely took took this bath to start to release, and for me to just like actually experience was really surprising. And I don't want to say scary, but I was really surprised that I started to bleed again.
Yeah.
And it happened the first time in my life. It really happened the first time that I would have like a 2 periods in one, in one time.
Right. And that's a sign of uterine fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also be what you're saying too, that there's a big emotional release happening, and that your womb is participating in that by releasing more blood and having a second period. And what I would want to recommend for you is to pay attention. And if it happens again, and if each cycle your period is longer than 4 days, then that will be something that I would recommend addressing by tonifying and supporting your womb. And if we were going to start, because, part of this is to give you recommendations for steaming, I wouldn't want you to steam after having had that second period in the month, because this is one of the uterine fatigue signals, is 2 periods per month. As well. Let's see, spontaneous bleeding, I would call that spontaneous bleeding. Have you ever had spotting? Did you have, well, you might not have ovulated yet, but have you ever had spotting during ovulation?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So,
in the past, yes.
Right. So that's another sign of uterine fatigue. And since you haven't really been tracking your cycle lengths, short menstrual cycle, you may have had short menstrual cycles off and on. Since you only have the last 3 cycles at 29 and 28 days, it may be sometimes you have cycles that are 26 days or 24 days or 27 days, and that's another sign of uterine fatigue. But we're not sure about that, so we can't really answer that one because you haven't. So this is why it's important to track, because if it was just this one time, you could easily say, oh, it was this powerful healing release. When we start to piece together this other information, that you have had ovulatory spotting, that you tend to have post-period fresh spotting, that and then suddenly now you're having a spontaneous bleed in 2 periods per month, we can gradually get more and more uterine fatigue. And travel creates that and like that. And it can become problematic. And now our womb is just trying to clear out, whatever you felt you were releasing, right? Emotionally and all of that. And so that's another way that we can support the womb, because it's not healthy for our bodies to be bleeding that much. And we don't need, we have other ways that we can release those emotions if we're paying attention. And really, we become aware of it. Sometimes our womb is the first thing to tell us that there's something here, and that we need to fortify and build things up. Okay, so you're not currently bleeding or spotting anymore?
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so next thing. So these are all the uterine fatigue triggers, okay? And often we have a whole bunch of these happening all at once. So it's no wonder that our uterus gets fatigued, especially over time, as we have a constant supply of these triggers. So do you travel regularly where you're sleeping away from home? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have anxiety?
Yeah.
Do you sometimes not prioritize your self-care?
Yeah, like the thing is that I work as a carer, and I'm taking for other people. So I have to say the anxiety and lack of self-care, it's something what is in my life present last 2 years, and I'm really aware of it. So yeah, and I'm sure that it has a link with my period as well.
Yeah, so it's something you're realizing that you need to address, because it is so often that especially women are encouraged by our society to not take care of ourselves and to just take care of everyone else. And you know, I watched my mother do that my entire life, and I'm sure most of us have, many of us have, especially if we had a loving mother, you know, who was at all able to share love and support and care for us. But she wasn't able to care for me as much as she wanted to, because she wasn't taking care of herself, and I felt like I had to take care of her. And so, and I imagine this is true for a lot of people, and that, you know, that approach of just caring for others and not taking care of yourself undermines our ability to really care for others, because our capacities to truly care for others start to deteriorate if we're not taking
it is definitely a big topic, and I took my lessons to understand that I have to be priority for myself. And it took me 2 years and anxiety to realize, okay, it's time to really do the things differently, you know. And also this journey with the womb, it's one of these, you know, one of these steps on this journey. So
and so great. So we're aware of these top 3 things, right? So are you currently going through a breakup by chance?
No.
Okay. Sometimes that's also happening, and then there's another breaking up can often create breaking up from an intimate you know, sexual relationship can often, the womb does all kinds of spontaneous bleeding to release that. Do you have a new job or situation at work?
No,
you've been solid in the job. Are you planning a wedding by chance?
No.
Do you have any loved ones in the hospital?
No.
Are you caring for an elder or a loved one?
No, it's like I'm caring of my clients, but not of my family members. So
okay, so you have caretaking work, but not family members. So that would be on top of that if you did have that. Are you moving or between places?
Yeah, really often.
Okay. Do you have job or financial insecurity?
I would say yes, even that I have a job, but this is definitely present, this question.
Okay. And then in general, do you feel fatigued?
Like tired?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any other situations causing anxiety?
Yeah, it's mainly my work, I would say.
Okay, so we'll just say no, because you already said anxiety is your work.
All right. Okay.
Do you have sex when you're tired?
I did in the past. Now I'm trying to be really much more aware of it.
Okay. So say in the past, but not now. Do you have sex right after your period ends?
Yes.
Do you have sex right before your period starts?
Yeah, it's usually the time when I feel it, that it's you know, that I feel really active in this way.
Okay. Are you on any health cleanses?
No, not right now.
Okay. Weight loss dieting?
No.
Raw food diet?
No.
Okay. Sometimes you do health cleanses though?
I'm planning one, but I'm not, and I wasn't in, you know, last 2 years.
Okay, but you've done them in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to say that point out that sex right after your period ends can get the bleeding going again. Okay, and sex right before your period is supposed to start even though that might be when you want to have sex, it can bring your period on early. And so that's why it's important to really track, because if most of the time you're 28 and 29 days with an occasional 27-day cycle, then that doesn't really matter, because you're not having short enough cycles to be of concern.
Mm-hmm.
But if your cycles were sometimes coming at, or regularly coming at 24, 25, 20,
Mm-hmm.
much earlier, then that might be something of concern, especially if you were wanting to get pregnant, for example.
Yeah.
Because that shorter cycle can offset your hormones and not allow enough developmental time and time for that egg to implant if it did get fertilized and things like that. And so, so it just really depends on what your intentions are for, and what you're listening to your, how detailed you need to be in listening to your womb wellness for what what you are trying to do. But as far as just having the most vibrant womb health for your center of creativity to be able to, and of nurture and care for others to be at its most vibrant, then, nurturing yourself in such a way that you have, healthy cycle length is, becomes a signal. Am I exhausted? Am I, just tired all the time, or am I vital and and have plenty of energy? So, okay.
Yeah.
So the next thing to look at with our periods is stagnation. So stagnation is when our fluids and our blood isn't circulating as freely and fully as it needs to. So our blood needs to circulate fully throughout our body to get all the nutrients that it carries to all of our cells and organs to the right places in a timely manner. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that causes our blood to become stagnant is that our livers get backed up. The job of the liver is to filter the blood, filter toxins out of the blood, and make sure that we have nice, clean, nutrient-rich blood. And if our liver isn't supported to do its job, then it says, whoa, I can't send out this toxic blood and I'm backed up. And so then it kind of slows down the flow of blood.
Yeah.
And stagnate the flow of blood. And that can show up in symptoms with the menstrual cycle, and that can give us a clue. The liver also processes the hormones. So if the liver is backed up and it's not processing the hormones, then the womb and the uterus and the ovaries and all of our reproductive organs aren't getting the proper messages from our hormones, because there's too many hormones still in our blood that the liver hasn't been able to process. And so that's how hormone imbalance can occur, is because the liver, one of the ways that hormone imbalance can occur is because the liver is backed up and stagnant. In Chinese medicine, it's called liver energy stagnation. And, can be because our liver is tired, or because we're not supporting the liver in various ways. And we'll talk more about that. But so these are the symptoms in our menstrual cycle that that indicate stagnation. So do you ever have pre-period brown hesitant start? So the blood is a little brown at first before it gets red.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And post-period brown hesitant finish, where some of your spotting at the very end is brown instead of red.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have uterine cramping during your period?
I had a lot in the past, but I would say that last four or even 5 periods are almost without really painful cramps.
And was there anything that you did differently that you attribute the cramps to have gone away from?
Yeah, it was really I don't know if this was really the thing, but I tried to be really much, you know, when I felt the cramps are coming, I was really like trying to be as centered and as with myself as possible, breathing into it, really like breathing into this pain. And I remember that once I had really, really strong cramps. It was, I think, in May last year or June, July, something like this. Maybe June, yeah. And I had this like dreams with the tiger and spirit animal, and the tiger was coming into my dreams. And once during this cramp, during my period, really I imagine, or this tiger face came like just in front of my face, and I kind of really connect with this animal and really with the power and with its spirit. And I don't know, like really since this happened, the pain stopped immediately, and I didn't have such a strong pains since that time. I don't know, it was, you know, like it's really, that's it,
Awesome.
you
You
know.
got some tiger medicine. Good for you. Okay.
Yeah, it was like wow, you know. And 2 days after, I found this huge picture of tiger on the ground, you know, like exactly
Wow.
in the way how it looks. So I have it on my altar here, on my woman's altar.
Well,
And
you know, that really coincides, that really makes sense with the energies that are necessary to get the liver flowing. So the liver has a very fierce, transformative energy that I would associate with tiger, right? Tiger
yeah,
has a very similar energy. The liver transforms toxic energy into toxic substances and energy into useful energy. So, what's often associated with the liver is anger emotionally. And anger can be toxic depending on how we use it, but it can also be transformational and motivate us to create needed changes in our lives. And so, tiger to me feels like that fierceness that's necessary to transform, you know, things that are toxic in our lives, to have the courage and the fierceness to step up to that kind of transformation. So it makes sense energetically why that would have addressed some of your pain.
yeah.
So do you still have menstrual cramps at all, just less?
It's like really minimum. Really, since that time, it was really minimum. The
Okay.
thing is that how it made me feel, it was really like a strong and powerful, and it gave me a lot of like inner strength. And I
Right.
definitely felt that it was working with the fears.
Okay, great. Yeah. Good.
Yeah,
Yeah, because fear is a very stagnating energy, right? If we're feared, if we're fearful to move, if we're hiding, if we're contracting in fear, that stagnates the flow of our energies and of our blood. And if we're fearful to even engage with that fierce, perhaps even our own anger, right? We're too afraid. I know for me, that's one of the reasons I had stagnation with my anger, is because I was afraid to show my anger because I would get in trouble if I did that, right? It would be
yeah,
disastrous if I showed my anger various times throughout my life. And so fear can really be a powerful energy of stagnation. And so it sounds like, boom, releasing that fear by becoming your inner tigress. My goodness. Take notes.
yeah. It definitely felt like in that moment,
Right.
and it was powerful. And you know, it's like I'm not calling for this, or I'm not, how to say, I didn't say, okay, let's connect with the tiger and
Right.
let's stop my cramps, but it just happened as it happened, and I just
Naturally.
let it happen.
There we go. And
And
you let it
yeah,
happen. Even though it was mysterious and you weren't sure what was happening, you let it happen. So may we all
yeah,
be blessed with spontaneous healing for our wombs and for our whole being, as you have been. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
onward with our assessment. So, do you ever have uterine cramping during ovulation?
No,
No.
no.
Do you ever have shooting pain in the uterus?
Yes. Yeah.
When, while you're on your period or other times?
It was even like in between during the cycle. It was really like there was a period when I felt it quite intensely.
But not while you're bleeding.
No.
And did you feel it that intensely during this last cycle?
No. I didn't have it, let's say, last year. I didn't experience it.
Okay, but the previous year.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to put sometimes, but not this last time, because it's less than 2 years.
Yeah.
That since you had that. Okay, do you have clots in your menstrual blood?
I don't know, what does it mean?
So a clot is where the blood is held together in a clump.
Ah, right. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have? We already said you had brown menses sometime at the beginning and at the end. Do you ever have black menses?
No.
You said that when you had your second period this last time, it was darker. Was it that dark? Was it black?
No. It was definitely like brownish, red brownish color.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason we look at these colors, so black and brown menstrual blood, means that that blood is no longer fresh. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you've ever cut yourself and you bleed and the blood clots and dries out, when it first starts bleeding, it's bright red. And then as it dries out and forms a scab, it's brown or black even.
Yeah.
And so that's what happens when the blood is in the uterus. It might not be exposed to oxygen. Well, it kind of is, but because it's got oxygenating blood in there, but it can get stagnant because when we don't have a full uterine cleanse, we don't have enough blood, there's stagnation, we don't get enough blood into the uterus to flush out the whole endometrial lining, and some remains in there.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next period at the beginning, some comes out brown, or during the period, some of that older blood can come out. And so that's from stagnation, where we're not getting enough circulation and getting things flowing. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you ever have breast soreness?
Yes.
Okay. So that's, again, another thing. Our lymph can become stagnant as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So our
I
lymph.
thought that it's a normal sign of pre-menstruation.
It's considered
symptom.
Normal just because it's so common.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessarily healthy. It's a sign of overall unhealth. Okay, it's a sign that there's stagnation in our lymph system. Okay, so breast cancer is quite common, but it doesn't make it normal.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Stagnation in the breast tissues that causes soreness, which is a sign of inflammation of the tissues, although it may be quite common, it doesn't make it normal or healthy.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a distinction. A lot of medical doctors have labeled a huge range of female pain and illness as normal, a normal part of our menstrual cycle. And it's not healthy, and it's not normal for women to be suffering like that. But that just tells you what some of the basic foundations of modern gynecology are. That it's okay for women to be kind of basically suffering and unhealthy, and
because I was asking this my gynecologist, and I shared these like pains in my underbelly. I shared the fact that, for example, I was bleeding while making love, or about I shared these like sharp pains, or that my breasts get really, really sore, and that I kind of like grow up and they are really painful. And they are, you know, or like a she, and even the previous gynecologist, they always said like, yeah, it's normal, it's normal. And I was, you know, and I left the ordination thinking like, I'm not, you know, like there was something inside me telling me like, I'm not 100% sure, but she's a doctor. You know,
Right.
she's supposed to know. But me as a woman, I was thinking like, I wasn't 100% sure if this is really normal.
Well, you were right to feel that way. And the truth is, doctors, modern gynecologists, don't have any foundation to say what's normal or what's not normal because there hasn't been research done. The foundation of how medical doctors make those kinds of proclamations is supposed to be research, right? But
Yeah.
women have been deliberately excluded from medical research because of the mysteries of the menstrual cycle and women's fertility and how it affects our whole body and our whole health.
Yeah.
In the 1990s.
Yeah.
Women have been excluded. We've been excluded from medical research, and yet the procedures and the medicines that came out of that research were then go ahead and prescribed to the women.
Mm.
You know, even though women were deliberately excluded because our menstrual cycles makes everything complicated. So the medical system is very much influenced by this patriarchal impulse to suppress and sweep under the rug everything involved with the feminine reproduction.
Yeah.
Right? And disregard and dismiss. Okay. So not all gynecologists are like this. There are a lot of gynecologists. My local doctor, I go in and I tell her all the herbs I'm taking, and she just says, okay, make sure you tell me what you're taking. So if I have to prescribe you anything, I know, you know, we can look at it and see how it works together. And there are some that are listening and that are starting to work with, you know, integrative medicine and like that. And my wish is that everyone can find a medical doctor that has an awareness of integrative medicine, because there are some wonderful things that, you know, modern medicine can provide. But for the most part, what I hear from most women on these womb wellness assessments, and I've done a ton, my doctor told me that was normal and just dismissed it. And I don't feel like it needed to be dismissed. It was important to me to find some, you know, approach. And there are things that we can do to help with that. So addressing stagnation, and there's lots of ways we can address the stagnation, can eliminate that breast soreness, and addressing the uterine fatigue can eliminate the bleeding during sex.
Yeah.
Okay. So have you ever been diagnosed with endometriosis?
No.
No. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder, like that's really severe PMS?
No.
Adhesions or polyps?
No.
Okay. Have you ever had any abdominal surgeries or procedures that created scar tissue or stagnation, perhaps? Any kind of internal procedures?
No. No.
So no scraping of your cervix, no, besides the normal pap smear, they never like scraped harder for anything, or? No. Okay.
I'm not aware of it. No, I don't think so.
Well, you would have known if they did.
Yeah, I think so, but no.
All right. So, okay, good. All right. So another energetic imbalance that our wombs can tell us about is blood deficiency. And this often goes hand in hand, can go hand in hand with the fatigue and or the stagnation. Because again, if you're stagnant and your liver isn't able to process your blood, then you end up with not having enough blood circulating around to places. And if your uterus is fatigued, it may be that it hasn't been nourished with enough blood to have the strength that it needs. Okay. And blood deficiency can be contributing to perhaps to the stagnation as well. If the liver isn't getting nourished, then it can't do its job very well. And vice versa. The liver also is responsible for digestive functions. And if it's not able to do its job, then we're not digesting our nutrients and we're not having enough nutrients in the blood to nourish all of the organs and tissues. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these interweave and go hand in hand. So these are signs that that might be going on. Do you ever have pink menses? No.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Orange menses?
No.
Yellow menses?
No.
Clear menses?
What does it mean, clear menses?
That it's coming out, but it's clear. You know, I found that I had clear menses when I used a cup one time because I wanted to paint with my blood. And when I
Okay.
pulled out the cup, at the bottom there was red blood and at the top there was clear liquid.
Okay. No.
No. Absent periods where you skip a period altogether and you're not pregnant.
No. No, I think that I did it like it was when I was maybe 18, but it was like a pills force, you know, like a chemically, you know, when I was skipping my period with the pills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'm not taking pills for 8 years, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So sometimes does your menstruation last only 3 or less days?
Yeah, I think it happened definitely in the past when I was really stressed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever had fresh spotting but your period never comes?
Yeah, I think so. It also happened in the past.
Okay. Watery menses where there's some red blood but it's doesn't look like it's really all red.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay. That's another way of saying clear menses.
Yeah.
The clear and red menses mixed together, kind of thing, where it's like a lot of fluid coming with blood and it's watering it down. Have you ever been tested for anemia?
Mm-mm.
And you're pretty sure you don't have anemia?
I would say that I don't think that I have it.
Because the reason this
or
is,
I don't know, when I did like a blood tests, there was never like it was always like a fine. So
okay. So when was the last time you had blood tests by a doctor?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. And it's only been recently that your uterine fatigue symptoms have been increasing?
Yeah, I would say that it really changed with my work, with beginning of my work, because I went through really stressful time, experiencing trauma, not having that I have trauma. It was like really rich time for all hidden and stressful symptoms. Yeah.
Right. And so I would suggest that you might want to get blood tests again because anemia can be a result of and actually a cause of uterine fatigue. Both.
Okay.
So it can be something that brings on heavier bleeding, and then the heavier bleeding, you're losing more blood, and then you have less iron in your blood, and then it brings on even more heavy bleeding and like that. So it can be quickly a downward spiral, especially when you're under all that stress. And that's one way to really fortify yourself for that kind of caretaking work. Is to make sure that you have plenty of iron. And so even before you get a test, I would recommend drinking plenty of nettles tea all the time.
Actually now I'm like using a lot of nettles seeds directly into the food and drink, because I really feel that my body needs iron. This is the thing. And so I'm trying to at least always before menstruation take extra nettle seeds, and which I collect in my own garden, and really like taking care of, because I'm starting to be much more aware of what is happening. And even now with the talk with you, it just feel that I don't know nothing. I'm like really surprised with the things, and it started to make sense even more, going even deeper, which is great and scary in the same time.
Right.
But great.
I know, right? What else don't I know? I feel like
Yeah, but it's cool. It's cool. I'm really happy to receive this, you know.
Yeah.
It's
And
amazing.
so, are
So
you drinking nettles tea as well as eating the seeds?
no, right now I have just seeds, and I'm just the nettles will be fresh in 1 month. So I really like to drink like a fresh nettle tea from fresh nettles from
Okay.
the nature.
Well,
But
I also recommend that even when your fresh nettles aren't available, that you have nettle leaves, even if you have to have dry, and that you
okay,
drink it all the time,
okay,
not just during your period, but just
okay.
have it be a staple food. It's a food.
Yeah,
It's how
yeah.
we nourish ourselves. Now, I am less familiar with using the seeds, and I have heard various ideas about nettle seeds, some saying that they're toxic in some way. So I encourage you to do your research and to know what you're doing with the seeds. I don't have that information. My guidance around harvesting nettles has always been to harvest the nettle leaves before this plant makes the flower and seed.
Yeah.
I've never had any herb teacher tell me to harvest the seeds themselves. So you may have other information than what I have, and I'm curious to hear about that.
Okay.
So I encourage you to, if you don't have that information on the tip of your tongue right now, to do your research and find out what nutritional properties those seeds actually have, because they may not have all the iron in them that you imagine that they do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
If you're just
Because
thinking, oh, it's
I'm
nettles.
living in this. I am living in this idea because I know that I read it, and I know that my sister shared with me because she saw it, or she was reading in some like a woman's
Okay,
magazine or something,
right.
that this has even a little bit more iron than the leaves itself, and you can use
Okay.
it for salads and all these things. But yeah, I can check it out
Yeah,
definitely.
I'd like, if you do have information about that and that's the case. I've never read anything like that, but I always thought that admonition against using the nettles after it's gone to seed was a little fishy to me, because I'm a whole plant using kind of a gal, right? I feel like,
Yeah.
well, if the leaves are good, then the seeds must be good. But I also know that a lot of plants, certain parts are good and certain parts are toxic.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
Sure.
good to really, I feel with herbs, it's great to follow our intuition, and it's also good to do our research and find out what people have discovered, and what research has been done, and find that out. So,
Yeah.
all right, good. I look forward to hearing more about what you find out about the nettle
Yeah.
seeds. All right. So, next energetic imbalance that women often experience, and anyone can experience this, is excess heat in the body.
Mm-hmm.
As I turn up my heater over here, saying excess
Yeah.
silliness. Okay, so signs of excess heat. So the excess heat in the body can come from stagnation, and where our fluids are, it's like the radiator in the car, right? If the fluids from the radiator aren't flowing evenly throughout the engine of the car to keep it cool, then it can overheat.
Yeah.
And so if our fluids, whether it's our blood or our lymph and other fluids, aren't
Yeah.
circulating freely and well, then some parts won't have enough fluid to keep it cool and will overheat. That's
Yeah.
that's my understanding of it. I'm not a Chinese medicine practitioner though, so somebody else, or you might read a completely different explanation of the heat. But it just, as far as like what I know about heat and fluids and flow and all of that, that's what makes sense to
Yeah.
me. So these are some signs that there's some excess heat perhaps in the body. Do you ever have neon menses where it's a really bright glowing color?
No.
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 Heavy purple?
No.
Hot flashes?
No.
Infections?
Uh no. I experienced a bacterial infection, or candida,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh but not during the menstruation.
Did you have that during this last cycle?
No, no, no. It was like, wow, 7 years ago. I had
Long time ago.
a chronicle ones. Yeah.
Okay. How about herpes? Have you ever had that?
No.
So yeast infections,
Yes.
long time ago. Now, yeast infection is considered different than bacterial infection. Yeast infection is a fungus, and bacterial infections is a bacteria. Did you get it diagnosed as one or the other?
Bacteria, I'm not aware of it. I know about yeast, but I don't know about bacteria. No.
Okay, you would know.
Yeah.
Because the yeast infection tends to have a discharge, a white clumpy discharge, and it's all itchy and everything. Bacterial infections have a different set of symptoms, and you would have known because your doctor would have told you. All right. So have you ever had urinary tract infections?
Yeah, but it was also like actually the last one was last winter.
Okay, so I'll say sometimes. Okay.
Yeah.
How about burning itch?
I had it. I experienced, but I think that it was always like in more or less the same time as a yeast infection.
Okay, so back that 7 years ago, you would have it. Okay.
Yeah.
HPV, did you ever get diagnosed with that when you had a?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
It was through my first boyfriend when I was 17, so 11 years ago.
Okay, and you haven't shown it. Have you had a pap smear since then and it was clear?
Yeah. I had this like a condylomata, right? If you heard about it, it's this little dots on the skin. It was actually, I wasn't aware of it, and after I visited my gynecologist, and I thought that it's kind of how to say that it happened because I was shaving or something, but he told me that actually I have a HPV virus, which I had no idea what this is. And after they had to burn it from my skin, so I had some scars.
And this was on your outer labia?
It was out, but maybe some of them were even a little bit inside, but he told me that it was coming even a little bit inside, but not like deeply. It was mainly like around, outside.
Interesting. I'm going to have to do more research because I was always under the understanding that HPV was a virus that was found in the cervix.
Like my doctor, he told me that this can how to say that this can create this like a cervix, problem. But he told me that it's also like another way how it show up is on the outside area on the skin, and it was like, I can tell you that it was like more than 200 little dots all over my genital area, and they had to burn it one by one. So you really don't want to experience this when you are 70.
No, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So it was like
it hasn't come back since then.
Yeah, this was a big thing, but after like I was dealing with this for, let's say, 1.5 years, and I had to do certain like 2 operations. And when they were like burning it and taking care of it, and after I started to have these chronic yeast infections, and my doctor told me that it's absolutely normal to have a chronic yeast infections, which I again didn't want to believe. Like, it's not normal to taking antibiotics like every month almost. So yeah, I have to say that my beginnings were, with the sexual life and with all this trouble which is brought into my life, wasn't the most happier one. But
right.
Yeah, but I think that 2 years after I experienced this, when I changed my gynecologist, so she told me that she did the test, and it's absolutely clear, that I'm not having this virus anymore. Yeah.
All right, good. So did you ever have cervical dysplasia? Did they ever tell you that? No. Cancer?
No.
Other STDs?
No.
Other viruses?
Mm-mm.
Night sweats?
No.
Okay. All right. So that was your big one at 17.
Yeah. Big one and first one.
Yeah. Okay. And you were cleared since then.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. So the other, another energetic imbalance that affects our whole body that our womb can give us signs of is dryness. So again, it's connected with stagnation. If our fluids aren't circulating properly, then different areas can get dried out. Also, dryness can create stagnation, because if we don't have enough fluids, we're not drinking enough fluids and all of that, then we don't have enough fluid to make enough blood to get things moving, to keep things moving. So it goes back both directions. So you already said no night sweats. Do you ever have dried blood flakes?
No.
Flaky vaginal discharge?
No.
Constipation?
Yes.
Did you have it this month, or do you sometimes have it?
Again, it came with work and with a lot of traveling and a lot of stress.
Okay.
I never had it's really like a first time when I'm experiencing something like constipation. So yes.
Okay. Do you remember to drink water when you're working?
I have to say that I really reduce the amount of liquids while I'm working.
So you'd say you don't drink enough water?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something that you could probably start paying attention to. I know I have a water bottle that I know, speaking of which, that I need to drink 4 of these in a day.
Yeah, like in the past I had the same. I had this habit like drinking a lot, but something to work on it.
Yeah, just having a water bottle that you know, okay, I need to drink 4 of these in a day, or you have a different one you need to drink in a day. Sometimes I hit it and sometimes I don't, but just I carry it everywhere with me, and I constantly am sipping on it.
Yeah.
Okay, vaginal dryness?
No.
Chapped skin?
No.
Dry or cracked lips?
No.
Itchy skin?
No.
Okay, so just the constipation and, you know, the fluids and the stress can cause that too, of like concern and anxiety and all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, then dampness can be another aspect where if there's not enough fluids over here, it's because they're all over here.
Yeah.
It's damp over here and dry over here, right?
Yeah.
So have you ever had sticky menses?
No.
Swelling? Your breast?
No.
You say your breast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever had yellow vaginal discharge?
No.
Green vaginal discharge?
Actually, the thing is that but I don't know if this is really like a connect with it, but I remember that really when I was a child, I was suffering a lot with this, with the vaginal leaking, or I don't know how to describe it. And it was really strong, intense leaking with the yellow discharge for sure. And this was when I was, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years old. And I know that my mom wanted to take me to gynecologist, but after it's somehow disappear, or I don't know, she just used certain cream for it. And I just remember that I was a little child and I was really ashamed, or I was, really didn't understand what's going on. I didn't even know what's vagina for, and it was just leaking with this yellow liquid.
Mm-hmm. You may have had an infection, or like a low grade infection at that time, and it can, I mean, the same influences of stress, anxiety, all of that can be affecting our bodies as children as they do as adults, the same influences. And so that you may have had an overall health imbalance depending on your diet and your emotional state of being and all of that showed up in that way. And it's less common, although I'm sure it's quite common for young children to have those kinds of infections as well.
Yeah.
So, okay, so green vaginal discharge,
No.
white vaginal discharge.
Yeah, I would say yeah. I experienced.
Do you have that? Did you have that this month or sometimes, or was it long time
No, I would say like it's a long time ago.
when you had
Like
yeast?
1.5 year, 2 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Clumpy vaginal discharge?
No.
Well, didn't you,
Or
when you had your yeast infections, you would have had that, right?
right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. Clear, bad smelling discharge?
No.
PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Have you ever had cysts on your ovaries?
No.
Fibroids?
No.
No ovarian cysts. Bartholin cysts?
Yeah, I experienced really bad one year ago. Yeah.
Nabothian cysts?
No.
No. Other fluid-filled cysts?
No.
Okay, so for those of you who are listening, the Bartholin cyst, and I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. The Bartholin's gland is named after some guy, right? But it's the gland at the opening of the vagina that produces vaginal lubricant.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have stagnation and dampness at the same time, where we might have more fluids, well, dampness is kind of is really a result, I feel, of stagnation, because we have the fluids, but they're just not flowing freely. So if they get stuck in somewhere, then it doesn't have a fresh inflow of fluids, and then that can start to build up and become a cyst and become inflamed, right? So that's a Bartholin cyst. A Nabothian cyst is when that happens on the surface of the cervix.
Okay.
Again, named after some guy who said, oh, there's glands here that produce fluids, mucus from the cervix. And so they named it after him. I think we need new names for these things.
Yeah.
All right. Weak digestion. So have you ever, this can contribute to all of these other things, as well as be a result. Like we said, if your liver isn't functioning properly, then it's not contributing to your digestion. If you've got stagnation or dampness, your digestion might not be moving well, might have too much mucus in there, things like that. If you have much dryness, then things can't move properly. And weak digestion then can also contribute to those other things, because we're not getting enough nutrients into the blood, and therefore it's not nourishing the organs, and therefore those organs aren't functioning at their optimum level. And often our womb is the first sign that things aren't flowing quite well enough for optimum functioning. Okay, so do you ever have abdominal bloating?
Yes.
When do you usually have that?
Again, it really started with my work 2 years ago. I have to say, I had quite a regular, like eating routine.
Mm-hmm.
But really, with stress and different clients and their routines, I had to kind of, sneak in between, and I was changing my eating routine really often, because I was changing the clients I was living with, so, and I started to suffer a lot with the bloating.
Because you weren't sticking with your eating routine, you were ending up eating what you were making for your clients, and it was dependent on your clients' preferences. This is
not always. Usually I had my own food, but it was usually eating, quickly, sometimes with stress, it's like, I build it, it's all these things I'm dealing with now. It's really based, or not all of them, but many of them, and I'm aware of them, how actually this happened and how I created. And it has roots a lot in the work I do.
and probably in some of the modeling that you received from your family, from your mother, and from the people in your life when you were growing up about how caretakers are supposed to do things, right?
Yeah. The thing is that, yeah, for sure. For
And then,
sure, I can see certain patterns.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
society has certain patterns of how caretakers are supposed to be, certain belief systems of how caretakers
Yeah.
be, that probably is built into the structures of your job and how it's set up, right?
Yeah, like definitely. Like the caretaking job, it's not about cares, it's about clients. And I have to say that really to be caretaker didn't taught me so much about how to take care about other people as much as how to take care of myself, you know, which now I'm kind of relearning, or I am much more aware, much more conscious about not healthy way. That's why I'm so much how to say, gaining my inner strength to leave this work, you know, because it's not definitely healthy for me in many different ways.
Right, and it may be that in a certain with a different company that would listen to and help, and perhaps has systems in place for taking care of the caregivers, right? That perhaps there's a different structure for how to do that same kind of caregiving work. I know my husband is a professional caregiver. He's a recreational therapist at a hospital. And he has been working towards asserting that he needs to be able to take care of himself. And he's educating his managers and his coworkers about that. And relearning that himself too, because it's really necessary. But there are systems in place in that structure that he gets paid time off. You know, he gets sick leave. There's breaks. He gets breaks throughout the day to, you know, and he has to set it up that he's not socializing too much during the breaks and that he gets his time. But he had to fight with other coworkers who would work through their breaks and try to get him to work through his breaks. And he had to say, no, I need my breaks. And so, you know, there may be ways to, maybe not with this company you're working with now, but there may be ways to set it up, especially if you're working for yourself.
Yeah.
You assert that taking care of you is number one priority.
Yeah. The thing is that I'm really like actually on my way to really change my work, because maybe, as you know, I'm breathwork facilitator. I became a breathwork facilitator. Plus, I work with the bug flower remedies. So I'm really in the way to change the system of taking care of someone, and after about myself, it's first like really take care of myself, and from that space, you know, bring something to the world, you know, as a breath worker or as a plant practitioner. So I really feel that it's not for me right now to continue with the caregiving.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least in that form, because those things you're talking about are very caring.
Yeah.
The breath work, you can be really supporting people in that, and the Bach flower remedies too. So good.
Yeah.
We'll support you. All right. So we went off on a little side note there, but you know, this is an important thing. And this is how we translate between the physical symptoms that our womb is giving us and how that is really fortifying what we know about our life to be true and the changes we know we need to make in our life, right? I mean, all of these different health imbalances, at least one of them you said, oh yeah, that's from my work. Oh yeah, that's from my work. And when we realize that there's so many of these, that our body is really not flourishing under our life circumstances, then, you know, it's really up to us to start to make some changes. And that's sometimes not very easy and sometimes quite challenging, given that society's structures kind of want, you know, push us to be suffering and be exploited and not be happy. The only way that that will change is by courageous people like yourself saying, you know what, I'm going to follow what it feels like it will be healthful and nourishing and fruitful for me and to be fully healthy, instead of just letting letting my work just completely abuse me. So, okay. Back to our symptom list. Do you ever have vomiting?
No.
Nausea?
Yeah, I had like 12 days ago after Christmas.
Because you
But normally I'm not having these symptoms. Yeah.
All right. That was
so
because you ate too much?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or maybe not too much, but chaotically.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Loose stools?
No.
Undigested food and stools?
No.
Allergies?
No.
Food intolerances?
I'm not aware of this or I'm not sure if it's like a food intolerance, but I starting to with this like a bloating. Sometimes it happen when I eat the bread. Sometimes it happen after I drink milk, so I skip the milk almost, but I'm still eating some like milk products. And sometimes it happens, sometimes not. With the bread is the same. Sometimes I can eat the bread and nothing happen, and other time I eat the bread and I get bloated. So I didn't. I tried to a little bit like a track on if the milk really like influence it, or if the bread really influence it, because I know that there can be a link between feeling bloated and eating bread, or
Right.
But so I would say yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but it's sporadic. Sometimes it may be that you don't eat enough of it, or maybe it's a higher quality bread or a cleaner milk, or in certain forms like in cheese or butter it's okay, but cold milk from the fridge is not okay, but maybe warm milk is okay, any different varieties. So and sometimes our body doesn't react, and then it gets to be a certain amount that we've eaten over the period of time, and then suddenly it's reacting to, so but that's you're starting to get some clues about what foods might work better than others, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to look at your standard, how your cycle is compared to a standard healthy cycle. Okay.
Okay.
So, how long was you said your last period, we already said, was 10 days, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And we said it was 29 days.
Yeah.
The cycle length, right?
Yeah. If we are talking about the last one, normally it takes around 4 days.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, the last one was longer. Yeah.
The last one. Okay. And your menses colors were red and
brown. Yeah.
Flow strength, light, medium, heavy, flooding, start and stop. Well, we know it was start and stop.
Yeah.
And you said there was clots, right?
Yes.
Anything else? Light, medium, heavy?
It's usually like it's beginning with like a heavy, and after it's ended up with a really light. Like the first 1 or 2 days, first day it's heavy, and after it's getting really like how to say, medium light. Yeah, then lighter, exactly.
We're talking about this last 10-day period. So
right, the last one, yeah, so it was like this. Yeah, did it start and stop, and it was exactly the same
heavy, like you had a whole second period altogether.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this last month, What vaginal discharges did you observe? Did you observe clear ovulatory nectar?
Maybe, yeah, the clear one, yes.
Anything else? White, yellow, green, flaky?
Today I had a little bit like a white, or I noticed like a white, white discharge, but it's, yeah, that's.
Okay, so was it white when it first came out, when it was wet, or was it white after it dried?
It was white when it came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then menstrual cycle symptoms. So cramps, acne, back pain, fatigue.
Yeah, it's yeah,
Breast
it's
pain.
yeah, it's definitely breast, how to say, swallow breasts. Pain in my underbelly, in my back, sometimes coming into my knees. Back pain, yeah. Tiredness, irritation. How to say this? I have this not usual, not taste, like appetite. You know, like wanting to eat like some funny combinations, or needing, you know, this greed of to need to
Crave,
have more food. Yeah.
cravings for strange
E-
food.
Exactly.
What did you crave?
This time, right, this time it was a chocolate and chips. You know, it's like chocolate and chips.
Okay. All right. That sounds normal to me.
Yeah, but I know, and even like even in the past, I had this really like craving to smoke cigarettes, which was even like you know, it's something what you really don't want to do, but your body's like, wow, you have to do it,
Right.
and it was weird, you know. So
Did you have that this period, this last period?
no, I didn't have it for a really long time, which I'm happy.
Okay. So this is the standard healthy cycle assessment. Okay. So
Hmm.
you have had, in all the ones that we've seen, you've had it between 28 and 30 days, the total cycle. Okay.
Yes.
This last period, however, was longer than 4 days. So we're going to take that as a sign that we need to pay attention to that. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, menses was only healthy red, no other color. We'll want to pay attention to that to see if we can clear out that brown blood.
Hmm.
And then the flow, we'd want to pay attention to the flow becoming even and medium.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and that you'd have just the clear nectar.
Mm.
Because the white discharge can be a sign that there's something that your womb is having to still clear out.
Yeah.
And then no clots, cramps, headaches, or other symptoms. So we're wanting to help your menstruation be as symptom-free as possible. Okay?
Oh, great.
And so the way we're going to do that is by encouraging you to have proper period care. So do you use cotton menstrual pads or period panties, external ways of capturing your blood?
No,
No,
for a long time I don't.
what do you use instead?
I use the menstrual cup,
Okay.
moon cup.
Mhm.
But I also have to say that last periods, I don't know how it's possible, but I'm also managing even without that. Like actually, the blood is coming when I'm on a toilet, and
Oh,
it's like a coming out. And after I use a little bit of tissue, or you know, to just like have a secure, you know, like
yeah.
barrier in a case that something will come out. But I don't know, somehow happened that I'm able to kind of hold it and release it when I can.
Okay. So even on your heavy days?
uh no, like at this time I took I put the moon cap because I knew that I will travel and I will not have so much time to go on a toilet, or you know, to just release it on my own. But really I didn't use the moon cap for last, if I'm not counting the last one, so 5 months.
Okay. So you could feel when it was time to go to the bathroom and release it, even if you didn't need to urinate, or you would just feel your blood coming and you would go.
Yeah, yeah. But it's something really new for me. I didn't even know that I'm able to do it, but it seems that I am. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. So do you eat nourishing soups?
I don't know what is considered as nourishing soup in
Well,
this
soup
case.
is just one of the most nourishing foods because the food, all of the ingredients in the soup are usually well cooked, and all the nutrients are released into the broth, and it's easy to digest. And so any soup that you make at home, and oftentimes soups that you get at restaurants, are quite nourishing.
All right. So yeah, I'm quite often I'm having like a pumpkin soup with the carrots, beetroot, which I cook at home mainly for myself.
Do you eat that? Eat any kind of soup like that or other recipes while you're menstruating?
Yeah, it's mainly like a pumpkin soup and the beetroot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you drink herbal teas when you're menstruating?
No, not with the intention that it's my menstruation. So, but because I'm drinking herbal tea, like normally during the days, I'm not having like a special mix for menstruation
Okay,
time.
but you're still drinking herbal teas because you just normally drink herbal teas.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And you could have a special mix for menstruation, but most herbal teas are still good for you, whether it's a special mix or not. You know, you probably
yeah,
drink chamomile or mint or nettles, or hopefully
yeah.
any of those are good. Do you use a hot water bottle or heating pad?
No, I don't have it, but sometimes I took a hot shower, or I'm just heating my belly with the hot water, or take a hot bath.
Okay. So I just remembered I wanted to say a few notes about that. About the things we've talked about already. So I'm curious if on the times when, during the periods when you were not using the cup and you were just releasing your blood on the toilet, were you feeling that lower abdominal pain?
No.
So does that only happen when you're using the cup?
Yeah, I have to say that I noticed that it had a link, but the interesting thing that I'm using a cup, let's say for 10 years, something, or maybe less, a little bit, 8 years, and I'm starting to feel sometimes that when I insert a cup, I feel a little bit of pain, but it goes away really quickly. But I have to say, if I'm not using the cup, I don't feel this pain usually.
Okay. Yeah, so that's why I wanted to bring that up, because that one symptom of possibly even the low back pain and the low abdominal pain that you were describing that you have during your period could be related to using the cup, and could be alleviated if you use some other way of capturing your blood. If you're traveling and you can't do this, just releasing it on the toilet. If you got yourself some pads, or an external way where you're not putting anything inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
So cotton pads, reusable pads, and that's a lovely way to capture the blood too, if you want to then give your blood back to the earth.
Yeah.
So something to consider. Do you go to bed early by 10 p.m. when you're bleeding?
No, usually I'm going after 10 p.m.
Okay, so this is one reason why our livers get stagnant. And why we have all those stagnation symptoms, because our liver is supposed to filter our blood when we're sleeping at night between like 11 and 3, or there's important parts of that process that need to happen with us asleep between 11 and 3. We need to be completely asleep. not on our way to going to sleep. so,
Yeah.
so being in bed by 10 p.m. is a good way to guarantee that we're completely asleep by 11 and that our liver can do its job. If we're in the habit of not being asleep then and eating late as well, because if you eat past 7 p.m., then your liver's more involved in digestion and can't do its job of filtering the blood as efficiently once it gets to that time of the night when our liver's supposed to do that.
Yeah.
So it's really important to consider our lifestyle and how it affects our liver stagnation. So being up late at night all the time is a causal factor in our liver stagnation. Yeah. And so then we can consider, okay, do I want sore breasts or do I want to get to bed early? It's also a causal factor in the uterine fatigue.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So do you take extra naps when you're menstruating?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you take time for introspection?
Yeah, I'm really I'm creating my time for it really since I'm aware how much I need it, which is, let's say, 1.5, 2 years. Yeah, I'm really trying to create this time for it. Yeah.
Good. Do you prioritize self-care during your period?
Yeah, the thing, if I'm not working, I definitely do. If I'm with a client, it's not possible. It's not, everything is possible, of course, but yeah, if I'm on my own, if I'm not working, yes. If I'm working, no.
Okay, well, I'm going to say no because sporadic prioritization isn't 100% prioritization.
Yeah, sure.
So, and that will motivate you to look at how can you prioritize it, even in smaller ways, because you might find ways that you could take care of yourself more. And it sounds like, before you end up quitting your job, which it sounds like you're moving towards, but you might not be right away, you might really strengthen your self-care prioritization muscle by saying, okay, is there some way, creative way that I can take care of myself?
Yeah, definitely I'm pointing towards it much more than I did, let's say, 1.5 years ago. Right. Even in the work, like when I had menstruation, it was like, I cannot be focused on myself now because I'm working with disabled client,
Right.
And but I'm this voice is much stronger. Really, it's like starting to even shout like, hey, there is also you in this life, and yeah, I'm definitely like going towards that and doing these steps, but I cannot say 100% yes, because I know that if I will have challenging client who needs a lot of care, I will be there for my client more than for myself.
Yeah, but you could have your water bottle there and be drinking water.
Yeah.
You could, wear special shoes that help your feet to feel nice.
Yeah.
You could, there's little ways that you could be taking care of yourself more if you got creative. You could wear a crystal.
Yeah.
To absorb any negative, difficult energy that you're dealing with your client.
Yeah.
You could have one in your pocket that you can touch, reach in your pocket and touch. Or you have several crystals on your body that are protecting your different energy centers or helping to cleanse out any of your energy centers.
Yeah.
You get up and move your body around and stretch yourself out on a regular basis. There's a myriad ways that while you're caring for your client, you could also be caring for yourself. So I encourage you to look into that, especially when you're on your period.
Yeah.
So refraining from sex is a controversial one. Some women feel that having sex while they're on their period gets things moving and alleviates stagnation symptoms. Other people, like some, the people who made up this assessment, the Chinese medicine practitioner that contributed to this, talks about how that sexual energy is moving in the wrong direction for menstruation, and that exposing our bodies to potential cold drafts and being naked and like that they don't feel that it's beneficial to menstruation. But I've had my own experience, and many women have their own experience of it being very beneficial to menstruation. So I kind of skip over that one.
Yeah, okay.
And let everyone have their own assessment of that for themselves and consider that for themselves. Abdominal massage, do you do that one while you're bleeding?
Yeah, I do for myself while I'm menstruating, yeah. Okay,
good. Yes. And hip ties.
Actually, it's really like intuitive. It's just because I feel that I need it, so I just do it. But I don't know any kind of,
You don't have the technique, although
right.
I'll be sharing probably some of that when we get into our conscious menstruation portion of the Bio-Mystical Womb Apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that. But hip ties are another way that some women alleviate some of those symptoms, because some of that abdominal pain and back pain comes from the ligaments connecting the uterus to the pelvic bones that get strained because the uterus is like 3 times heavier when we're menstruating. So tying the hips and squeezing the hips gives compression and holds everything closer together so that the uterus is being held in place and not pulling and causing pain or strain on the ligaments. So have you tried that? Probably not.
No.
Yeah. So I've talked to a few women that instinctively did that. Okay. So these are signs that you're needing more rest, like bed rest during your period. Okay. So for example, 5 days or more fresh menstruation, you had that this last time, but you didn't have this meeting with me yet. And it's, if we'd had this meeting, you might have said, oh, maybe I need to have bed rest. I'm having a second period, because knowing that might be a sign of uterine fatigue, you would say, okay, now I need to rest my body, which is the best response for uterine fatigue, is to actually rest. And that way the uterus can build up her strength again to close off those blood vessels. And then if we're resting, we can release whatever emotion or whatever stuff that the uterus is trying to release through bleeding in other ways, whether it's, some kind of emotional release or just breathing or vocalization. We can help the uterus so that we don't have to bleed so much to release all of that. Okay. So heavy menstruation, it doesn't sound like your menstruation is super heavy, even though it was long. It doesn't sound like you're having flood bleeding, but you do have the spotting sometimes after day 5. So those are times when taking more rest time during your period would be the important. Okay. So when you can. So so these are lifestyle things to support coming into balance with your menstrual cycle. All right. Yeah. That your womb is asking for, and that might take you a while to actually develop. So let's see. What's your date of birth?
2nd March, 1992.
Okay, and number of pregnancies?
0.
And you're not currently pregnant?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Are you trying to conceive?
Sorry? If I'm trying to, no.
No. Okay. So if you were trying to conceive, so this line of questions is if we were preparing to do a steam right now with you, we would want to know where you were if you were trying to conceive, because that would influence whether or not we would set you up for steaming right now. If you had current fresh bleeding, which we know you don't, we wouldn't do steaming right now either. Or if you had a current burning itch, we wouldn't do steaming right now. If you're currently using birth control or pregnancy prevention, what do you use?
Yeah, like you mean my ways to...
Yeah, how do you prevent pregnancy?
Right, it's how is the name? It's like that my partner doesn't ejaculate inside me. I don't know if it doesn't have a name.
That's called pulling out.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And you know that that's not 100% effective.
Yes.
Okay, so you know you're taking a percentage of a risk of getting pregnant when you do it that way. And that you could minimize that risk by looking at your menstrual cycle and your fertility and not doing it that way, or using some, either abstaining from sex or using some other form of protection as well, like a condom or something like that, during the times when you're most fertile around ovulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have how is the name? Pessar? I don't know how is the name in English. You know, the one like this cup which kind of covered the cervix.
Oh, like a diaphragm?
Like a woman's condom.
A diaphragm and a woman's condom is a little bit different. So a woman's condom is like a soft, quite large, that's partly on the outside and part goes inside. A diaphragm goes all the way in and covers the cervix.
Exactly, this is the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes do you use that?
No, the thing is that I have it, but I don't know why I'm a little bit scared to use it, because when I was trying to you know, to kind of insert it, I never felt like, I was never sure if it's right, you know, if it's like right inside. And also when I was taking it out, it caused me certain pain, you know, or really like a discomfort.
Did you get it from a doctor?
No.
Okay.
But I think because I get it some, you know, like years ago, and I still have it. But I consulted this with my doctor, the size of it, and so she kind of helped me to choose it.
And if you can take it to your doctor and have her coach you on how to insert it and how to know that it's inserted properly, that might alleviate some of your concerns.
Yeah.
You can combine that with the pulling out method, and then you might feel more confident.
Yeah.
But I would feel more confident even with an improperly inserted diaphragm during my fertile time and the pulling out, combining that with the pulling out method than just using the pulling out method.
Yeah.
Okay. And in fact, I would say just using a plain old condom on the guy is your safest bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. For you. And if the guy that you're with, if your boyfriend or whomever complains about it not being comfortable, you can say to him, you should try out a diaphragm.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Like the thing is that my boyfriend would be definitely, you know, he wouldn't have a problem with it. Good. But I also experienced 3 times with other partner, and it was 3 times with 3 different partners that the condom just, you know, break, and it was Durex, you know, and it was absolutely fine. It wasn't like after expiration or something. So I was like, oh my God, how I can trust condoms if they get broken or they just get stuck inside me, or, you know, I had this like troubles with the condoms. And but yeah, we have a condoms here, but the fact is that we just don't use it. But I know that if I would ask my partner, he wouldn't be against that. You know?
I would trust a condom more than the pulling out method. That the risk of it breaking, or, I mean, getting stuck inside you is no big deal. You just push it out. You just push it out with your vaginal muscles, and you reach in and you grab it and you pull it out. or breaking, that risk is smaller than the risk of getting pregnant with the pulling out method, I feel. Because the pulling out method assumes that there's only sperm in his ejaculate, but men have pre-ejaculate that often has sperm in it.
Yeah.
And so I would say combining that method with fertility awareness tracking, and that OvuView app will give you pointers and tips based on all the best science about fertility awareness for preventing pregnancy, on what days are your most fertile days based on, you know, however many months. You have to track it for 3 months or so before it really starts giving you accurate data on which days you're most fertile. And then on those days when you're most fertile, really putting, you know, wearing a condom and combining that with the pulling out method if you feel safer because you're worried that the condom is going to break.
Yeah.
And having your partner be sensitive to the feeling for if the condom is in the right place, or if it's fallen off, or if it's broken. If he's really feeling what's going on, which I hope he is, he can feel that.
Yeah.
You can feel that.
Yeah.
And stop things before it gets weird, right? So, and that happens really rarely.
Yeah.
Even though it happened a few times for you. And then you can also get the right size condom. There's a website called theyfit.com, and it gives you tools for measuring your partner's penis when it's fully erect. And then you can order. They have a whole range of sizes: longer ones, shorter ones, fatter ones, skinnier ones. And you get the right size, because that might be why it broke, because it was too small for your partner. Right? So there, and if you were using the wrong lubricant, so you know you're supposed to only use water-based lubricant. If you have any oil, if you're using oil-based lubricants, that can deteriorate the condom.
Yeah.
So all of these things. And I'm saying all of this, you probably know a lot of this, but I'm saying it for the listeners as well.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of women, nobody knows about it, right? These are things that women might assume and not really have the right information about it.
Yeah.
I've been using condoms reliably my entire 15-year marriage, and I haven't ever had an unwanted pregnancy.
Yeah.
So. Okay, so we already talked about your surgeries. Do you have any other major health concerns? No. Are you taking any medications or artificial hormones?
No.
And what's your experience with vaginal steaming? Have you ever tried it?
Yes, I tried some months ago.
Just once?
No. It was few times. It was, I don't know, in total 4 times, 5 times.
And what was your experience?
Beautiful. It was, I felt really like my womb get activated. I felt much more connected with myself. After first steaming, I really sit in the meditation. I started to really receive certain messages, or, really getting the sense of connection, inner connection with myself. And I felt relaxed and really cozy in my own body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And what kind of herbal formula did you use?
I used herbs. I made my own mix.
Okay.
I used chamomile, rosemary, lavender, a bit of lavender, and valeriana, I think. It was intuitively what fit to me that time. And this combination, I don't know, I just felt that it's fitting me for in that period. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, and so normally if you were a new client, I would ask you about, were you interested in just this one-time consultation about vaginal steaming, or if you would want to have monthly evaluations. Since you're in the 13 moon apprenticeship, we'll have the opportunity, you can update each month by filling out this form yourself, and we can discuss if you want updating your steaming plan. Okay. So just for listeners, I'm going to go through quickly without answering all the questions, the rest of this form, and then we'll do it together after we end the recording. So new client, we would sign this waiver, we'd read and sign this waiver together, talking about what to expect around vaginal steaming and what not to expect. And then we would do an overall evaluation about what imbalances we were looking to address with the steaming and the period care and all of that. Then we're going to create a vaginal steaming plan, including if you're having uterine fatigue, what are some of the first aid things to stop too much bleeding from happening, how to set up your session, how many times to steam for each day, what herbs to select, whether or not to use cloaking, which holds the heat in, and then a steam schedule. We're going to come up with a steaming schedule for you to address the specific imbalances that we talked about in this assessment. We're going to make any other additional recommendations about lifestyle to help with those imbalances as well. And then we're going to look at food therapy for the different imbalances, different food guidelines for that. Okay, so we can go through that together, but I just wanted to complete this recording right now for the podcast. It's been going on for a long time, and encourage listeners, if you want to do this kind of a assessment together with me, you can reach out to me through the website, wombcentrichealing.com. And if you want to be part of the Bio-Mystical Womb Apprenticeship, where we're doing this together, learning about our menstrual cycles and how to heal our overall health through vaginal steaming, then you are welcome to check that out too on that website at wombcentrichealing.com. All right, so that's all for now for the podcast and for our listeners. And okay, that's all for